Hi everyone, Carissa here. Welcome to Wild Inside Wellness. Today's video is an overview or a brief introduction to an entire tarot deck. It is not a deep dive into the individual meanings of all 78 cards, but rather an overview of the three main sections of a tarot deck, being the Major Arcana, the Court cards, and the Minor Arcana, all of which deserve their own video. But in this video, I'm going to introduce you to the themes that show up in all three of these sections and how you can begin to use those themes and work with them to develop a greater understanding of tarot. I am going to be using the Rider-Waite-Coleman-Smith deck, which is one of the more contemporary decks that many people are familiar with. It is kind of the modern contemporary deck that many other tarot decks are either based upon, borrow symbolism from, or are inspired by. And that makes it a very good learning and teaching deck that you can take what you gain from it and apply to many other decks. So with that being said, let's get started. We're going to dive into the Major Arcana first. Okay, so here we have the Major Arcana, also called the Major Arcana, the Trump cards, or the Majors, all different names for the same thing, the first 22 cards in the deck, beginning with the Fool and ending with the World. The Fool is numbered 0 and can usually be found at the beginning of the Major Arcana, though it is sometimes placed at the end, indicative of something called the Fool's Journey. The Fool's Journey is basically a story that the Major Arcana tell, which is one way of becoming familiar with the themes and symbols in the tarot. So the themes, which are represented in these first 22 cards, show up again and again throughout the rest of the deck. So becoming familiar with them and having a basic understanding of their meaning as it pertains to specific cards is helpful when looking at the rest of the deck. So examples of themes, which is also the symbolism in the cards, is the sun, the moon, the star, the lightning bolt, the pentagram. Even here, the sun is also represented in the Hanged Man and also more subtly in Temperance. So looking for just images and symbols that repeat themselves, which help support you in understanding a deeper meaning of the cards. These cards speak specifically to the life lessons in wisdom and learning, and archetypes, which represent the journey of life that we are all on, being the Fool's Journey, and that we all embody to varying degrees at different points in our lifetime. So these cards, pretty much when any card from the Major Arcana show up for you in a spread or a reading, it is always significant. It is always worth paying attention to. They are often an invitation to look more deeply at your life, perhaps as it relates to your specific question that you are consulting the cards for, and dig a little deeper. They ask you to become aware of areas for growth, areas of stuckness, places where you are ripe for transformation, maybe places that you could surrender or take action. There are layers upon layers of meaning within the Major Arcana, and the same can be said of the entire deck, but here the meaning of the cards can be much more nuanced with the themes and symbols and archetypes and correspondences, which we will get into more deeply when I explain the Court cards and the Minor Arcana. They all work together to provide a detailed and rich meaning for each card. And so that's why I would say the Major Arcana are kind of the more complicated set of cards in the deck, because there's so much meaning and so much layered depth to them. And I think once we go through the Court cards and the Minor Arcana, it'll help you understand these just a little bit more. And in fact, we are going to return to these at the very end after we've gone through the Court cards and the Minor Arcana, because there is one more technique that you can apply to all the tarot cards that I'm going to show you or explain to you in the next sections, that when we come back to the Major Arcana, it'll be really helpful in understanding just one more tool you can have in your pocket for applying meaning or gaining meaning from this specific set of cards. So for now, we are going to move on to the court cards. Okay, so here we have the court cards, which are technically part of the Minor Arcana, but I find it helpful to understand them independently. The court cards introduce us to the suits of the tarot, being wands, swords, cups, and pentacles. And each of these suits have certain correspondences. So there's that word that I said we'd get back to. And these correspondences basically means each suit corresponds with particular things. I'm going to introduce you to the correspondences of elements and qualities of energies. So wands relate to creativity. That's a key word when it comes to understanding the suit of wands. And they are related to the fire element. Swords correspond with the intellect and the element of air. Cups correspond to our emotions and the element of water. And pentacles correspond to the material realm and the earth element. We'll get more into the suits and their correspondences in the Minor Arcana section, but one correspondence that is very, very present in the court cards is that of masculine and feminine energy. And I just want to say before we keep going that the concept of masculine and feminine energy here very much relates to those qualities of energy that I was speaking to, that we all possess, sometimes more, sometimes less, depending on where we are in life, and really has nothing to do with gender or how one presents externally. You'll notice that this deck is represented by kings, queens, knights, and pages. You'll sometimes find king, queen, prince, princess, or father, mother, son, daughter. It doesn't matter so much the title as what the cards are trying to convey on an energetic level. So in terms of energy, with these cards, we are working with the traditional understanding of masculine energy being associated with action and doing, and feminine energy being associated with receptivity and being, as in being present, just the state of presence that feminine energy holds, which is vast. We all experience and hold masculine and feminine energy within us, to varying degrees, and it's important to remember that we need both. Another unique facet of the court cards is the youth or the maturity that each card holds. And there's meaning in that as well. So the knights and the pages being the more youthful cards, maybe there's more optimism present, perhaps a bit of recklessness and drive, whereas the kings and queens are more deeply settled in themselves, have more confidence in maturity because of the journey that they've already gone on, with which the knights and pages are still on. And there's a lot of wisdom in both. There's wisdom in youth and there's wisdom in maturity. All of this, combined with the suits and correspondences, can help support you in beginning to understand each card's unique wisdom. So for example, let's take the Queen of Wands and do a quick assessment of meaning based solely on the information I've provided. So the Queen is representative of feminine energy, therefore receptive and really strong presence. Wands are indicative of fire and creativity. A word that I really like to associate with the Queen of Wands is passion, or just wands in general is passion. So this card, on a basic level, represents someone who is a highly creative and passionate person and exudes this quality in their very presence. They are mature and confident in their abilities. So that is a very quick way that you can kind of puzzle piece together the meaning of the different cards, kind of almost like a chart, which coming in from the side, which suit, which I guess, energy is it, masculine, feminine, what's the level of maturity, where are they at on their journey, and begin to piece together the meaning of the court cards. That's pretty much all I'm going to say about them for now. The court cards are also going to be their own video. But for now, we're going to move on to the last section, which is the Minor Arcana. Okay, so the Minor Arcana, 40 cards. It was kind of hard to fit them all in, but it can seem overwhelming to learn the meaning of even more cards. But we've already learned a few things that help us out, being the correspondences. We have been introduced to the suits of tarot, and here they are again. Wands across the top, swords, cups, and pentacles. And now we have other correspondences, once again, being numerology, numbers. We can see the cards are numbered. You look closely at the top of each card throughout, ace being 1, all the way through 10. And with a little work, we can learn that each of the numbers holds meaning. Getting into the numerology of tarot is, again, its own video, as is a full deep dive into the Minor Arcana. But for now, let us start with key words for each of them, each of the numbers. Okay, so ace, and this is something you'll just eventually, the more you practice, the more you'll become familiar with it. And these are very, very simple keywords for each number. The numbers themselves have, varied and nuanced meanings depending on a lot of things. So ace is the number of, or 1, is the number of new beginnings, and it's a really high energy. It's got a lot of movement to it. 2 is for balance and or partnership. 3 is for collaboration or creativity. 4 is stability and structure. 5 is change and communication. 6 is harmony and reciprocity. 7 is mysticism and strategy. 8, hard work and will. 9, completion and learning. And 10 represents new beginnings or lessons learned. Because after we get 1 through 9 and we get to the 10, any number past 9 can be reduced down to a number 1 through 9. So 10, 1 plus 0 is 1, which is the number of new beginnings. So a 10, it's a card of having learned lessons and perhaps completed tasks. And once again, beginning again, but perhaps a little more wisely than when you started. Okay, so now I'm going to show you an example of combining the correspondences within the minors, just like I did with the court cards. We are going to do, let's see, the Ace of Swords. I'm going to pull it out and show you. So, swords correspond with air, the intellect, combined with the energy of the ace. This card therefore indicates movement and new beginnings in the realm of the mind. New ideas and concepts developing, which have a lot of new energy supporting them. And that's a very basic and simple understanding of this card. And you can do the same thing with all the other cards. You can combine the energy of the suit, so fire, air, water, earth, with the number, and kind of use it to come to a really basic meaning of what those cards are, just to get you going and understand the tarot on a somewhat surface level. So the lessons and meanings which show up in the Minor Arcana, which differ from the Major Arcana, is that they're more, they're more of the day in, day out variety They're the ups and downs of everyday life, whereas the major arcana are like the big themes that maybe we experience for periods of time in life, but aren't, I mean, and you know, of course, take up space in our day-to-day life, but are not always present, whereas these, to one degree or another, we can see ourselves in most of these from time to time. I really feel that the minor arcana mirror everyday experiences of being human. And just like the majors, they paint a picture of development. They tell a story. So the major arcana tell the story of the fool's journey on, you know, big lifetime scale, and the minor arcana fill in the gaps, fill in the everyday details of the fool's journey. So that is all we will do for the minor arcana today. We're going to return to the major arcana briefly so I can explain the numerology concept that can be found within the major arcana so that you can begin applying it right away. Okay, so we are back at the major arcana, and the one more theme that I want to introduce you to that we covered in the court cards and the minor arcana is the concept of numerology, which I find a very helpful tool in understanding tarot just a little more deeply. The Fool is 0, and then you see all the other cards, number 1 through 21. Now, I explained how numerology works, or primarily works, numbers 1 through 9. So that would be with the Hermit right here. And then with the Wheel of Fortune being number 10, it's kind of a place of new beginnings. The meaning of the Wheel of Fortune, very basically and simply for right now, is that all things come full circle. All things come to pass. There are ups and there are downs. So the Wheel of Fortune itself is kind of a new beginning. And then we go 11, 12, 13 onward, all the way to 21. So when we get to these cards that are past number 10, we can take 11, and 11, 1 plus 1 reduces to 2, which is the High Priestess. And we can begin to look for similarities between the High Priestess and Justice. And if you look closely, you see they are very similar, both beings sitting on a throne in a position to either dispense wisdom or justice. And then same thing with the Hanged Man. 12, 1 plus 2 reduces to 3, which is the Empress. And this is where your intuition can really come into play, because what are the similarities between the Empress and the Hanged Man? We'll get into that more in a more in-depth video. But the same thing, Death, 13, 1 plus 3 reduces to 4, which holds the energy of the Emperor within it. So that's just another tool that at this level, very beginning, you can just begin to think of numbers in that way and the energy they hold within them and how that is represented in the tarot. So before I get to my next video, which will dive very deeply into the major arcana, that's one way you can start to understand their meaning. Okay, I hope that was a helpful overview for you. As I said earlier, I'm going to be making individual videos for all 3 sections of the tarot, diving deeper, more into the themes and symbols, numerology, other correspondences like astrology that show up, and also individual card breakdowns, which will be longer videos. But hopefully this was a good reference just to get you started and familiar with and working with your tarot deck. So thank you for joining me, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.